Let me welcome you on behalf of Antelope Valley Audubon and MOA, the Museum of Art and History. It turns out that our Vice President, Jenni Williams, is also a worker of MOA. So it works out very nicely. And she's going to begin the program. We're doing the program on ecology and connections at the preserve. She wanted to talk about the connections of everything, how it affects everything else, in the preserve. So that's what we're going to be talking. And then at the end, we're going to have choices where you can either go out for an observation depending on how hot it is, or we can give you the observation form to use wherever you want to go. And then we have pictures to color, either crayon or pencil, of all of our local birds that we could get colored pictures of. So I want to introduce Jenni, who is going to begin our program. She was an art major, which is wonderful because she has that creative side of her nature, which is wonderful to observe and participate with. And she has always had conservation as one of her interests, and so she is what we call a nature journaler that will take her artistic skills out and draw what she sees wherever she goes. And I'm hoping in the future we'll be able to start up a little nature journaling group that wants to go out and draw under her direction. So without further ado, Jenni Williams, take it away.
Thank you.
No.
Can't hear me? Can
That's
you hear me now?
Yeah,
better
now.
Okay.
That's good.
So like Carol said, I thought it would be interesting to speak more about all of the ecology around our Prime Desert Woodland Preserve rather than just birds or just mammals. I mean, without one thing, we can't have the other thing. So I will start right now.
The little right one?
Yeah.
It's not clicking?
It definitely was working like 5 minutes ago.
Jason.
Murphy's Law of Presentation.
The dotted lines are a bit off of where they're supposed to be, but that's okay. You can see there's Nancy Corey, the school over there, and then some little neighborhoods that made it. But these are all the trails that you can walk. This one is my favorite trail. This one over here.
Oh, yeah.
With the 8,000-year-old creosote bush.
Yes.
Wow.
Wonderful. Okay.
You probably went to sleep, right?
I think the dotted lines are a bit off of where they're supposed to be, but that's okay. You can see there's Nancy Corey, the school over there, and then some little neighborhoods that made it. But these are all the trails that you can walk. This one is my favorite trail. This one over here.
Oh, yeah.
With the 8,000-year-old creosote bush.
Yes.
Wow.
Wonderful. Okay.
You probably went to sleep, right?
Okay, so today some of the things we'll be covering. Lots of lovely things like trees, plants, animals.
Maybe it's
I think
directional.
maybe I'll just come over here. It's okay.
Okay, well, I can sit there and change them if you would like.
It's okay. Okay, so some of the topics we'll be covering today: the ecology of Prime Desert, what makes the desert biome, what makes the Prime Desert Woodland Preserve special, the uniqueness of the Prime Desert Woodlands features, and the plants, animals, and birds that we have here, and how to conserve the habitat, some food web connections, weather and climate connections, what effect people have on the environment. Oh, and also insects, because we didn't put that up there. Carol's going to go over the insects later. And steps that people can take to conserve the environment. So what makes a desert biome? If anybody wants to answer. Does anybody have any?
Everything.
Everything?
Well, but break it down. You live in the desert. What does that mean?
Less water.
Less water.
Okay. What else?
Species that are adapted to survive in that area.
Yes. I believe that's called endemic species.
Endemic,
that
yes.
have adapted specifically to that area, and we have quite a few out here. So yeah, not much rain. That's what makes a desert. High temperatures, obviously, and extreme temperature fluctuations. In the winter it's very cold, summer it's very hot. Low humidity, though lately, the last year, it's been fairly humid, about like 20% humidity on average. Soil high in minerals, but the soil lower in organic material. And erosion by wind and water. Now, what makes the Mojave Desert special compared to other deserts?
Joshua trees?
Joshua trees, yeah. Joshua trees. And what were you gonna say?
I didn't hear him clearly, but then I got it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear what she said. What did she say?
She just concluded that yes, Joshua trees.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not all.
Yeah,
A lot of creosote bushes.
a lot of creosote bushes. And we're not a low desert, we're a high desert, which means that we're a higher elevation, around 3,000 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, from what I read on the signs when I've been here, I guess the juniper and Joshua aren't normally on the same elevation or the same land.
Yeah,
And I don't know any more than that, what I read.
yeah. So there's a sign out there in the preserve that says that this is maybe like the only place in the world where Joshua trees and juniper trees live together. In fact, you sometimes will see them sprouting out of one another, and that's very special just because of our elevation and the humidity and our temperature fluctuations. So we're a range shadow desert, which means the mountain ranges are parallel to the moist coastal areas, and once all of the clouds and the moisture come up over that mountain range, as you have seen in Quartz Hill, when the beautiful marine layer comes in and you think that maybe we're going to get some rain. No, we're not. It's going to disappear.
Marine layer, is that what I see kind of, I'm usually out in sunset time. Is that what I see in the atmosphere?
Like out
around here?
Well, what you see is fog and smog. So
It's a mix?
So when the marine layer comes up the hill, okay, then we've got water vapor, okay, and that's what we typically think of when we think of marine layer. We think of more water vapor in the air. But we have so much pollution that we have smoke because of all the fires and everything. So that makes it smoke and fog, which is what we call smog.
Yeah, it looked different. I've only been up here a year or so, and it looks different at sunset. And the coloring in that of the sky, even though the sunset is in the west, struck me, and I wondered about it.
Well, I can say that that's actually called a Venus belt. That color out there, the purple and pink and blue, and that just beautiful shift. And it's right when the sun is setting, all of like the particles in the air that you mentioned, like the pollution and all the other particles, the sun just shines perfectly through them to make this phenomenon.
We actually get more color when there is more smoke
Right.
and burnt particles in the air. That's why you see the red, like in the sky after the fire is out.
Yeah, that color mix struck me.
I love that pink and purple color out there, like in the east.
It does.
It's really pretty.
So then, Jenny, that means that because of the way the Mojave Desert, because we're at the tip of it, right, the southern tip of it here in Lancaster, the environment and generally what is different about our environment than, say, the Sahara Desert, just as another one off the top of my head, that increases or changes the way we see the atmosphere as well, and like you mentioned with the Venus Belt. Oh wow, that's cool. It's a good piece of information, I didn't know that.
And another thing about that, which is really fantastic, is we cool off at night, whereas the low desert does not. I've been, you know, in Arizona when it was 125 at midnight.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's cool.
like the Mojave Desert spans quite a range, but where we are in particular is high desert. 29 Palms and Palm Springs is still a part of the Mojave Desert, but it is a much lower elevation, closer to sea level. So they do not cool down at night.
No, but they still have, the whole Mojave Desert has Joshua trees. So Joshua Tree National Monument
Right.
is the Joshua trees, even though it's way over out the 60s.
Yeah,
It's still part of the Mojave Desert.
yeah, I've experienced that numerous times. Yeah, it's quite different here.
Yeah, even if you go out to Vegas, it looks much, much different, but there's still Joshua trees out there. They're still a little skinnier and less, less watered out there.
And the different varieties of Joshua trees.
I believe all the ones out here are Yucca brevifolia.
Brevifolia.
Brevifolia?
Yucca brevifolia,
Yeah.
brevifolia.
Yeah.
And the ones down near the Cajon Pass are Yucca brevifolia Jaegeri.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew they looked a little bit different. Like ours are so much chunkier here, but that's interesting.
Some of them get up to 30 feet high.
One
Yeah.
of the slowest growing trees in the world.
Yeah, which is why fire can be so devastating, because it takes over like 100 years for them to be mature, and they
And
need
that's
to be put on the endangered list. Yeah. But yeah, so other than the Joshua trees and you know, the rainfall out here, yeah, we talked about all of the climate stuff. So yeah, as the air comes over the mountains, it's dry on the leeward side, so this prevents clouds and rain from forming and keeping the area dry. So it keeps the area dry.
See, and that's where we are. We're on the leeward side.
Yeah. So what affects the park ecosystem, like the desert preserve ecosystem? So we've got rainfall and arroyo, which is the channel of a dry river or wash. And so out here, you'll see throughout the preserve, there's plaques that talk about the riparian area. I want to say riparian or riparian. Riparian area, and you can see actually out these windows when the blinds aren't closed. There's a whole bunch of cottonwood trees and other brush and foliage around that are right around a riparian area or one of these dry river washes. So when it gets really, really wet out there in the wintertime, it floods and fills that channel and provides all of like the moisture for the entire preserve pretty much, and all the animals here as well. And there's also another sign over there on the south side. There's a couple of signs.
So those, I have noticed those cottonwoods, and I wondered if they were naturally here, because cottonwoods usually do need the
I believe they are. I think those cottonwoods are native, aren't they?
What?
The cottonwood trees that are
Yes.
out there? Yeah. They are native. But you will probably only see them around a riparian area
Exactly, yeah,
because
that's
they
where
need
they
all that
only
water.
place they would be anyway.
Yeah.
There were some that were planted, you know, by the farmers, and a lot of those have died out because they were planted on the edges of their property and they didn't have any water source. So over the years, especially like maybe K and 90th, I want to say, there was a whole.
I've seen those, like just these
yeah, long
rows of them, and they're all dead and so huge. Like,
yeah, and that's why, because they didn't put in drip systems when they put them in, and they died out from lack of water.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
the water
usually,
table
it's
dropped.
usually a water tree. Anywhere else, it's usually near the water.
Like willows are the same way. Willows like water sources.
Yeah, willow trees.
Oh,
like
exactly,
water
you're
sources.
right.
Then I think of some of the shrubs and bushes that do best with what they have, as the creosote over here. You can actually see it. It's raised up on the ground, like the roots have like balled up on the ground because underneath is caliche or caleche, which is like basically like brick soil. Like it's so hard that nothing can really penetrate it. But the creosote bush has been able to just make do with as much water and as much soil as it has, and it built its own platform to survive on, and it's been there for 8,000 to 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's the largest creosote bush in LA County.
I say hi to it every time I walk over there. Okay, and then another thing that affects the park ecosystem, basin, or a low area where sediments have accumulated. So I was kind of thinking again of the creosote where all the nutrients and everything are like under there. Interactions of animals. So like, you know, if there's too many coyotes, then there's no more bunnies, and then we have an imbalance in the ecosystem, or vice versa. If there's too many cottontail rabbits, you know, then the foliage is going to get run down. We need a balance of the food web. Food webs. Flash floods.
So the interesting thing about flash floods is they sit, so we have, this is what is the most unique thing, is we have the Arroyo Basin, and so when the flash flood comes, well, I guess I should turn my own mic on. When the flash flood comes, the water sits in this caliche, over the caliche, and that's what allows this particular preserve to grow the larger plants where we don't see them in any of our other parks. So that really is the most unique feature.
Cool. And then wind, of course, we need the wind so that all of our plants can pollinate. And animals. All right, to get into plants. First one being, oh, juniper tree. That was going to be a Joshua tree. So yeah, we've got our juniper trees. Those placards out there are really great if you have a chance to read through them. I learned so much just from these. I think this is the one that talks about how juniper trees and Joshua trees live together. How rare that is.
I like the one about when the film industry came.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They brought all the tumbleweeds as props.
Oh, yes.
And now all of America is just full of tumbleweeds. Yeah. More Joshua trees. Oh, I like this picture because this is on the clone path that's over here on the northeast trail. There's a plaque for it, but if you stand in just the right spot, you can see basically the same tree, just copied and pasted over and over and over again, like a little Y. Because not only do they pollinate with flowers, but they also shoot out roots with like a clone of their genetic material within I mean, they're all part of the same system of tree. So it's like a parent tree and the baby tree and the baby tree. It's really interesting to look at. Might be too hot today, but. Mormon tea, which I know the Native Americans used it for medicinal purposes, but I'm not sure how, or I'm not sure like what exactly they made, but.
They boiled it.
They boiled it?
Yeah, it was, its name is ephedra,
Okay, cool.
and it has ephedrine, which is what Sudafed is mimicking.
Oh, okay.
It's a medicinal thing.
Oh, Sudafed like for
Cough and
colds
cold.
and
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
cough and
cool.
cold kind of thing.
And we have our Joshua trees. And then I don't know if it's mentioned later in the insect section, but I was going to mention the yucca moths. That are super, super important for our entire ecosystem out here. So those big white, beautiful blooms that you see in the springtime, there's a sole pollinator for Joshua trees, the yucca moth. They're these kind of nasty beetle-looking, like little black moths that live inside of the flower. And if it weren't for the yucca moths, we would not have Joshua trees. You don't usually see them though, because they're inside of the flower.
So what's cool about that is the genetics of that. It took thousands of years for the genetics of that to like go to where that moth is species specific to the Joshua tree. And we have a lot of other insects that are also species specific.
Rapid bush. That's the bush in the front, right? That we're seeing in the front.
So that, when it blooms, it's yellow. This place gets yellow all over the place. Sorry, I didn't catch a shot when it was blooming.
Okay. As opposed to the mustard bush that
Right.
came up this last year that made everything yellow, but that
Which
was
is
not a
invasive,
rapid bush.
right.
It was invasive and just a kindle for fire. You could see it in Acton and out here and all over the Antelope Valley. I'm not sure where it came from or how that happened.
Well, it's been in California for a long time. When I was a little girl, we had it up in I grew up in the Bay Area. And it was all over everywhere on the hills, yeah. And then I went to India and saw massive fields where they do that mustard oil.
Okay, and now we'll go over some animals in the preserve. We've got lots of different types of animals. Mammals, reptiles, birds, insects, and other arthropods like arachnids. So here are some lovely images of some of the mammals we have out here. Yeah, so we have jackrabbits and cottontail rabbits. So this one is a cottontail, and you can tell they have shorter ears and a cute little white cottontail. The jackrabbits look a bit more intense. Longer ears, really long legs, and their eyes are lighter colored, so they look a little scary if you get up close to them. And a kangaroo rat, I was just telling Eden, my coworker, earlier about, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Danny Dodge. She's a somewhat local artist, and she did an artist in residency out here where she put nighttime cameras out in the preserve, and she caught an amazing video of an owl, I think it was a great horned owl, swooping in on a kangaroo rat that was just sitting there, and it came within like 6 inches of this kangaroo rat, and it sprung up, I want to say like 10 feet in the air, like just completely disoriented the owl, just like boing! And apparently they have proportionately the largest jump out of like any animal, because they're only this big. They're so small, but that was something to see.
But see, the tuft on the tail allows them to get more lift.
Well, one of those little kiosks say that the jackrabbit is not a rabbit, that it's a hare.
It's a hare.
And it is it's born out on the open, and the little rabbits are born underground
Okay.
with their eyes closed, and the other ones have their eyes open when they're born.
Oh,
At
okay.
least one of those things they have.
But are they all lagomorphs?
Yes,
No?
yeah.
And we'll go into birds, our favorite topic. Now it took us a while to get the perfect image here. Got that owl coming in. So yeah, we've got here
And our number one bird.
raven, common raven. That's one of my favorites, most intelligent. Highly, highly intelligent, and they mate in pairs. I love that. And they can talk, as we found out earlier. We were just watching videos earlier of this lady talking with her raven. She's like, say hello. And it goes, wow. Say hi, hi, hi. more birds. Got the verdin. I still haven't seen one of these.
So see if you change it, now they can, next. Okay, now, what bird is that?
Is it a Nettles or?
Well, that's a good question. Which is it? Do you think it's a Nettles or a ladderback?
Butterback? No?
Let's find out.
Nettles.
Okay, now the difference is how far forward the red comes on the head. So you can see the red doesn't come all the way down to the bill, right? It's like back, and then that black band at the nape of the neck. And that's what makes a Nettles a Nettles. And I tell you, Christine hits me at least once or twice a year where I have it identified as the wrong one. You are very close. And sometimes, you know, you might be seeing a hybrid and then you just really don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, when we made this presentation, we had to change the photo because we realized it was not the right one.
Yes, well, you had to change the species. Right.
Thanks to Kimball, we just learned about that.
Morning, Dove?
Morning dove.
Okay, very good.
Very
Nice.
similar to the Eurasian collared dove, but
But remember, it's not spelled like morning in the morning when you get up. It's morning like, ooh, ooh, ooh. It's like it's
Sad
morning
voice.
Sad.
when it sings.
Morning.
Like, ooh.
And
Which kind?
which kind is
We've
it?
had anise. Is there any other
Another
votes?
kind too. We did it at the paint and sip.
Those flanges, the fact it's
Yeah.
purple and those flanges.
Costas.
Costas. And we have them here in the park.
Very
rose
vivid purple. Very vivid purple.
Cooper's
This
Hawk?
photo. Yeah, this one's a Cooper's hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to tell between juvenile hawks in general
Well,
or
yeah.
Cooper's hawks. They all have this spotted chest, so it's a little difficult for me at least. What's this guy?
Phainopepla.
Phainopepla.
I haven't seen one here. Those are one of my favorite birds.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that Don Bennett took that picture in the preserve.
Wow.
So we don't see them often. And you don't, it's hard to see, but it's a red eye.
Yeah.
Mm.
So when you're looking in your binoculars, you're gonna know it immediately with the red eye.
Flicker.
Northern flicker. I have one that lives in my backyard. I see it almost every day.
Neat. They're
And it's
so
a winter, it's more of our winter bird
Yeah.
rather than a summer bird.
They have quite the shrill call too. Just cuts across the whole preserve.
Yeah, you can't miss it when you hear one of those if you know.
Now what's this one? Red breast.
Robin.
Robin. They're a lot bigger than I thought they were. If you get up close to them, they're pretty large.
Oh, my favorite.
Jan's
So
favorite
American
bird.
kestrel.
American kestrel.
Smallest falcon in
I know we
America.
used to have a kestrel program here before I worked here. They had kestrel boxes out in the cottonwood trees, but they since removed them. I'm not sure.
Well, okay, so Patrick put those in and they were registered boxes.
Oh, cool.
So the box we have out there now is registered with the Falcon Association. But the other boxes, the bees took over.
Yeah.
Oh,
So they've been removing the ones where the bees, and that's often when you have bird boxes, bees like to use them for their hives. So you have to really watch them.
that makes sense. Safe, small space. And this one's a little hard to see because it's facing us, but there's a little hint there.
If you look at the bottom and the
Yeah.
tail. What is it?
I don't know this one.
It's a western
Really?
bluebird.
Yes, you do. The buffy.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'm not recognizing.
Can you
it.
see the blue on the tail?
Yeah, but I'm looking for the red breast and.
So this
and
is the
blue wings.
female.
Oh, it's the female, that's
Yeah. No, this spring,
Not
there were so
important.
many of them this year.
No.
This is such a funny
no.
Don Bennett took this
That's Don's picture, yeah.
It's just one of the most fabulous pictures because I had a great horn land in my sycamore tree in my backyard. And I noticed that the feeders all went quiet. You know, when it's really quiet, I generally have 100, 200 birds feeding at the feeders. And so I went out and I saw, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's why it's quiet. Well, then an hour later, there was one raven in the tree. 2 hours later, there were 5 raven in the tree. And 4 hours later, there were 11 raven in the tree surrounding this great horned owl who just would open its eye and look at the ravens and close its eye. So he roosted there that next night, but then I guess the ravens drove him out because he left.
Ravens are gangsters.
They're so
They're so
smart.
funny.
And they know how to manipulate to get what they
Oh,
want.
they sure do.
We didn't believe this picture was real. I was like, this can't be real. This is crazy. It's a great, great photo.
Okay, yeah, Don Bennett is a fabulous photographer. He's amateur, but you wouldn't know it.
All right, so list of mammals. I guess we jumped around a little bit, but that's okay. So we've got coyotes, rabbits, like we mentioned, squirrels, rats, ground squirrels, mice, gophers, and then hares as well, since we mentioned the rabbits and the hares.
Did I not add hares? Ooh, I was supposed to do that. I'm sorry.
Oh no, we all just came up with that a few minutes ago, so we'll add that. So this is the ground squirrel. Have you heard these out here in the preserve when you're walking around?
Oh, yeah.
So at first I would pull out my bird app and be like, what
Yes.
kind of bird is that? And it was not moving up.
And it doesn't identify it. Well, it's not a bird.
And then you go around the
Exactly.
corner and you see a very angry ground squirrel.
They make
just-
that little cheep, cheep,
Yeah.
cheep
But
sound.
it is a sound deafening cheep.
Gosh, it is, like, it really cuts through, like, really, really
does.
far away. One time I was here, I saw a ground squirrel and a cottontail rabbit fighting over a den.
Wow.
Like they were quarreling, like, I don't know, like Tom and Jerry, you know, like they were tumbling up over a hole, over a little burrow. I'm not sure who was first, but it was
So,
interesting.
Jenny, is the ground squirrel out here a good example of how animals can adapt to their surroundings? The reason I say that is one of the things that I found interesting was moving from the East Coast to the West Coast. Even seeing squirrels was a bit odd, but then for a while, they're always on the ground and burrowing underneath. So is this a fair example of the adaptability of animals to their surroundings?
I would say yes, because I noticed that too, even when you go to the Sierras or anywhere outside of the desert, you see the little squirrels with a stripe on its back, or like they climb up the trees, chipmunks. Well, but there's the squirrels too that look like the chipmunks. But
Mojave ground squirrel.
these ones, like they look like the dirt and they live in the ground and they don't really climb trees that much and they blend in so well. I would say, yeah, this is definitely a species
Well,
that has
also,
adapted
if you
here.
burrow down in the ground, these guys don't just have a little hole. No, they have tunnels.
Yeah.
You know, going from point A to point B for, 35 meters, they're big. So it's cooler down there. So that was an adaptation. Go into the ground to stay cooler during the heat.
And then I
And then
learned walking a preserve, they go into torpor.
Yeah.
When
and
it's really, really hot, they go into like a hibernation to avoid the heat. And that's very species specific for out here in the desert as well.
a reptilian behavior also.
You know, coyotes. They look so cute, little puppies. Has anyone seen coyotes out here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the preserve?
Yeah.
Well, and those again are pictures by Don Bennett here.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I had a close encounter with a coyote. I was sitting on one of the benches just kind of taking in the surroundings, and it came by and stopped and looked at me. And then it very slowly moved off, and it kept turning and looking back at me. It was really
Wow.
cool. It was one of those, you know, your own personal experience. There's nobody else around, and just eye contact, and it was really very, very nice, very special.
That's amazing. I've only seen one time on the furthest, like, west side, and it was bouncing and jumping after a rabbit or something, I
Yeah,
suppose. 'Cause
yeah.
It was boing, boing, and then it disappeared. Yeah. We got reptiles. When it's really, really hot here, these lizards crowd around the front entrance because it's nice and cool. I've even seen them stacked on top of each other, which I don't know about that, but this one's a juvenile. I think we'll get to a picture in a minute where the adults have a blue belly, like a really beautiful blue belly. And we do have snakes out here as well. I've never seen one personally here in the Prime Desert. I saw somebody had found a dead one. It was black, and they left its corpse out in the front for us to take and maybe like use in the museum, but it was just too old, so we didn't choose to. But other than that, I've never seen a living snake out here. I know they're here. And these are all western fence lizards. I'm not sure why this picture won't clear up, but it's a good example. All right, well, now I'll hand it over to Carol. She knows everything about insects.
Roadrunners wasn't mentioned any place in here, and Dawn has pictures of roadrunners.
Oh, yeah, we have
Oh, yeah.
roadrunners, definitely, yeah.
We should have added that because we tend to know they're out here.
Yes.
All right, so I'm
I'll
getting.
click for you, okay?
Okay, all right. So insects, my favorite thing in this world. That is my graduate degree, and I started out as a researcher classifying insects at California Golden Gate Park in the museum there. So I try to put in insects that we see here on the preserve. So the one thing that people say is, oh, I see all these stink bugs. No, no, no. Those stink bugs are darkling beetles. The black beetle right there at the top picture on the left. They raise their little, abdomen, and they do put out a little pungent ick. And that's why people call them stink bugs. But stink bugs are from a completely different class of insects. And we have quite a bit of ants. On the bottom, you'll see we have a regular ant on the right. But then in the middle, I actually saw a velvet ant here. And I was like really happy to see them because they're not, you don't see them very often. And swallowtail butterflies, crickets, grasshoppers, dragonflies, bees. They're all here. And then we have other arthropods. So one that really affects what is going on is mites. The mites attacked the coyotes a few years back, and we had mange on the coyotes that was caused by that little red mite. And then we have the flea on the right. Now, we used to, when I first moved here in the early 80s, we didn't have fleas in the Antelope Valley at all. They couldn't stand the cold during the winter. But as more people have moved in with their domestic dogs, they brought the fleas with them. And so now we do have fleas in the Antelope Valley. Just like the bee, the aggressive African bee was not up here, but now it has managed to move up into the Antelope Valley. And you'll know right away, because normally if you see a bee, if you run in a straight line, the bee won't follow you. You just run straight. But if you run in a straight line and the bees follow you, you know they're African bees. And they're going to sting you if they get you. So, yeah, so we have to be careful. My friend Anna Farrell, who is a beekeeper, she will pick up, the bee colonies, and she did pick these up from the Prime Desert. But when she does that, she has to really keep them away. Now she has 2 plots of property, and one of them is a certified wildlife preserve. She has her bees in that preserve, but when she picks up a new colony, she has to put them far away, because if they are Africanized bees and they get into regular honeybee colonies, they will kill out the honeybees and transfer it over. So originally, I don't know if you know the story, but originally a researcher brought back the honeybees to Panama and was studying them because he thought the Africanized bees would produce more honey. So he was studying them, and then an accident happened in the lab, and the bees got out, and a window was open, and out they flew and took their queen with them. And so that is how it came across the Americas, like South America, Panama, into Mexico, and the Southwest, and then it's moved north. So now we have them now. And then we have lots of spiders and scorpions. The reason I put that little spider on the left is I want you to look at it. That is a brown recluse. And that has the worst, again, is worse the right for, I'm not sure, worse bite than black widow.
Yeah, it causes necrotizing fasciitis, like skin-eating
Yeah,
bacteria.
your skin
It's
will
really
start
bad.
to be destroyed around the bite. So you want to get in and get an antidote right away. And they're really not, they just look like a spider, right? But if they're brown, leave them alone. Okay, next slide.
Is it true that scorpions fluoresce under black light?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it depends on, the species, but yeah, most of them.
The ones that are out here, I know they did because as Dr. Ansani from AVC, he's a scorpion expert, and he came in and did a presentation here, and he brought a black light, and he had he had 10 different individual scorpions that he's shown the light on, and they all glue that fluorescent green. They might have been a local species only, I'm not sure.
I don't
but
know, that's a good question.
Also, they're very docile. If you handle one, they just walk right over. They don't try to sting you or anything. It's crazy.
Not me.
Unless they feel threatened. That's the thing. Like when I taught science in middle school, I made the mistake of telling people, and I have always been slightly afraid of spiders, and of course, spider is not an insect, but I had to do a collection in college of spiders, so I would put on full army fatigues, put my hair, up in a big scarf, and then put a hat on, and I would go out. And then I told the kids, the tarantulas we have here are not, not the toxic kind that are in the Sonoran Desert. So if you see one, bring them in. The next day, 4. Because Friday 4. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to get over my fear, because when I put my head in there to keep it. So we had tarantulas, and we had tarantula babies, and so we put the tarantulas in our 100-gallon fish tank for 1 year and watched tarantulas grow. And the kids used to sign up to have the tarantula. And they would hold it in their hands, and so forth. So it's kind of fun, but yeah.
I wanted to ask, do we have ticks up here or no?
Oh yeah, but it's up, generally ticks are up in the hills and not down on the flats.
Okay.
So-
Do we have what?
Ticks.
Oh.
Ticks. So what are animal needs in the habitat? You're an animal. What are your needs? What do you need?
Water.
Water. Okay, what else?
Food.
Food. What else?
Shelter. Shelter?
Shelter.
I thought you said
Are
chocolate.
you doing in the head of my asking her? No. I turned around and looked back and I was like, oh, did she give them the answer?
Right when somebody answered.
Okay, anything else? What do you live in?
Shelter.
Well, yeah, but there's kind of more to it, right?
Air.
Well, you live in the habitat, right? Okay. Anything else? Let's see. I don't know.
No, that was it.
Okay, let's go on.
Okay.
All right, now, what can we do? Knowing what animals need, what can we do to conserve the habitat?
Don't throw trash in the desert.
Don't pollute.
Yeah.
Don't pollute.
And I can always remember the big grizzly bear. What was his name? That was our national parks thing. Smokey, yeah, he would say, and don't pollute when you come out to visit classroom. What else?
Don't kill the plants.
Don't kill the plants. And what are ways we can kill plants?
Poison.
Walking on them, driving over them,
Okay,
compacting the soil.
okay, all good. Anything else?
Don't use poison.
Pardon?
Don't use poison.
Don't use poison. Nicoderms. Don't use necrotic, like, well, anyway, it's the poisons that affect the nervous systems because they will affect the nervous system of what eats them when they're dead, and so on and so forth. All right, so now,
Plant native
she put the one there and none of you said this, I can't believe it. After last year, I was just really focusing on planting native plants. Number one, if you plant native plants and insects especially have a long generational compatibility index in California. So when you plant native plants, you're going to have more insects. If you have more insects, you're going to have more birds, more rats, more, little animals. And then, of course, we're going to see the food web shortly. We'll see what happens. But okay, what else? Because this is a long.
Avoid pollution.
That one was mentioned. Thank you. Avoid pollution with plastics. Avoid use of you have to do twice. That one didn't come in.
Oh.
Okay. Non-organic pesticides. Okay. Pick up trash and recycle. Remember to recycle. Make sure there's a water source. Provide shelter, remove invasive plants. So and conserve land for all animals, because when you conserve land, it's not just helping, the animals, it's helping all of us. If we have more clean water, if we have more clean air, if we have more oxygen in the air as a result of planting plants and trees, we're going to have a healthier environment for all of us.
So how do we know what's invasive and what's not? Like how can
Okay, we have to go to a list, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can look them up on the internet,
Okay.
and you can get the invasive species for your area.
Because when I went to the NASA Earth Day thing, they had, like the California Parks people were there with pamphlets. But when I look it up online, it's just like people say whatever they want on the internet.
Oh, well, I don't generally go to just anybody's list. I go to like national parks or, what is it? It's not called national parks, or Forest Service. Forest Service has a really good list of that. Which kind of pesticides to use, which not to use, and that sort of thing, as well as invasive plants. And, other, like our tree people, they are keeping a pretty good list of, and they're working actively in our area as well. So that's a good source as well. That might be something we want to do, is like create the invasive species list for the Antelope Valley.
I do have that California native plants contact
Yeah.
we can bring into
Yeah, we
the
should
conversation.
see what we can do something like that
I
and
can
see what
think
else
of
is.
two.
I don't think the list is done here.
I
The
do
mustard
think
and the tumbleweed.
Yeah. Two.
the conversation we're having, one of the things I do think is interesting about the state of California is, it seems like retailers, and California does take steps to try to keep non-native agriculture out of the state. I know whenever you leave the state or come back into the state, they have the checkpoints. I remember when I moved out here, I was kind of confused by it at first, and then my wife, girlfriend at the time, explained what it was. I was like, oh, it's interesting. And the reason why I find it interesting is if you try to order plants online, generally speaking, the retailer will allow you to add it to the cart potentially, but the retailer then refunds you if they realize that the shipping address is California, because one of the plants I was trying to buy for my garden, I didn't realize it was non-native. I was trying to buy a holly tree for my garden, but it was a non-native Californian holly plant I was trying to get, and the Amazon blocked it when I tried to order it, and I was confused. And then when I went to a retailer that I order plants from in Wyoming, I don't know where they are, they send really nice plants. They took my order, they paid it, and then they emailed me and they refunded me for one of the plants I ordered I didn't realize was non-native. So I think that that's a benefit, at least out here in California, for the fact that some retailers will not sell you, ship you plants that are not native to California. I think that that's a good way to cut down on it, or at least try. So.
That's interesting. I'm familiar with the road checks, but I'm not involved in getting things, and I didn't realize that some of these higher level organizations, like California State or something, have done quite a bit in terms of conservation and interacting with businesses and individuals. It's really quite impressive.
Yeah, I would gather one of the things, to continue with what you're saying, one of the things I think is interesting about California other than other states, if they have any product that you want to purchase that isn't approved by the state of California. So I'll give you another example that's non-relevant to here. There's a silver polish that you can purchase. It is actually created in New York, where I grew up. If you try to order it for California, they won't ship it here because the product has stuff in it that's not approved for California.
What was it called?
I think it's called Never Dull. It's a silver polish that...
Oh, polish. Oh, I see what you're saying. Other products.
Yeah. California does a good job. I framed it around plants because that's what we're talking about, but just generally speaking, it's like larger retailers that'll do it. Amazon has to follow the law because I guess California, they can say, well, then you can't ship things here. So it's interesting that California does that.
That's quite a junction of...
Well, and I think that was part of the policies when Amazon came to California as well and set up their, large warehouses in, California, that was required. And that really is legislative. So that's where we, as people, we can talk to our congressmen and our senators about what we want for our area. And I noticed that I do that a lot more now that I'm retired than I did when I was working. And I, pretty much send action alerts over anything that has to do with conservation law in California. And our statewide Audubon keeps us, our local Audubons, informed about that. We have something called the Southern California Chapter Council, and we meet like once every couple months for 3 hours, and the state talks to us about what bills are on the hopper, who's doing what where, what are the big conservation programs that we're doing, and we have one that we're working with the fisheries on the anchovies and keeping the count of that so that we have enough anchovies for the birds that migrate through. we're working with the desert community to try to build more wetlands back. And we have like over $1 million that has been slotted to that. And they're working there with the Salton Sea and trying to build back the wetlands around the Salton Sea. They're also trying to build back wetlands in the whole San Diego area, especially now that we're having more storms coming up. You know, wetlands between the ocean and civilization is a good way to prevent damage from storms. And also it's a good way to provide a source for nutrients, crustaceans, worms, etc., that the birds feed on, and other animals. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So we just don't have anything in the Antelope Valley, but we have a federal program that we're trying to work with the proper allocation of solar energy so that it's not affecting our rare and endangered bird species. All right, I think there's more on the list.
Yeah, we still have food
Okay.
webs and stuff.
All right, so now we're going to talk about food webs. So basically, whatever is little gets eaten by whatever is bigger, if we think about it that way. So plants are eaten by insects, rodents, birds, and rabbits. Insects are eaten by rodents, birds, rabbits, reptiles, and mammals. Birds, rodents, and rabbits are eaten by bigger birds, reptiles, and mammals. So we have a couple of examples here. So if we start down at the grasses, okay, if we start on the grass on the left, you can see the rabbit eats the grass, the fox eats the rabbit, or the mouse can eat the grass and the fox can eat the mouse, or the mouse can eat the grass and the owl eats the mouse. And so we have both owls and birds eating mice and rabbits. Okay, then we go to the right side and we have the grasshopper eating the grass, and boy, we have a load of grasshoppers right now. Boy, they are munching away in my yard. So the grasshopper might be eaten by a frog, or it might be eaten by a bird, and then that snake is going to eat the bird or the frog, and then the hawk is going to eat the snake. And so basically that is the way it works in a desert biome. Now, of course, you know, this all starts out with microscopic, you know, as well. So we have the algae and so forth, and then that moves over into the grasses. So animals can eat algae as well. Marine algae is a good source of protein. Next slide.
We have a desert one.
Okay, now we have a little bit different one. Okay, so now we're looking at different plants on the left. Okay, so we don't have, well, we have non-native prickly pears that were, you know, planted throughout California. So we do have them in California. So we have the squirrel, you know, that is eating the flowers and the little bulbs from that. And then you see the squirrel can be eaten by the hawk. Okay, then we move down. Then we also have the rodents. If we go down there, the rodents. And I believe insects also eat off of the prickly pear flowers. You know, they gather nectar, and you know, and ants will do that as well. So we have insects, and then we have rodents, and then of course we have the birds, and then we go from them, and they get eaten by other things. Now, I don't know whether you know or not, but we'll be doing hummingbirds next month, and one of the main predators of hummingbirds is the praying mantis. And also these lovely little kestrels that we love, they eat hummingbirds as well. So we have mantis, you know, that are eating the insects, and then the birds are eating the mantis, and you know, so forth and so on. It goes along. And we can put butterflies in there too, because As you know, the monarch butterfly has a bad taste. So most birds leave the monarch butterfly around. So we have a mimic butterfly in California called the viceroy. Looks very similar to the monarch. There's something about a black spot in one of the wings that's the difference. And so they benefit because if they were eaten, they wouldn't taste better. But they mimic the coloration of the monarch so that they don't get eaten as much. So this is the way of the world in terms of things have to eat other things in order to survive, and then it goes to up the scale. And of course, man could eat any of these things if they chose to. And they do all around the world. We eat insects, we eat birds, we eat rats, we eat rodents, we eat rabbits, you name it. And then we have our domestic animals as well. Okay, what's next? Okay, what about the water variables? Because that's pretty interesting. Out goes the water, goes the rest of the population of living things around it. So these are water variables. Cleanliness of water. This is something we didn't used to have to worry about. When I was a little girl, there wasn't pesticides or plastic toxins. We used to just, my family used to backpack all the time in the high Sierras and hike the Silver Strand. We would just have, I remember how wonderful the water was, of the mountain water right off the snow when it came in.
Yes.
It was like, whoa, so wonderful. Now we eat about 1 credit card of plastic every week, microplastic. And it's all over. Scientists have tested from the North Pole to the South Pole, and there is plastic everywhere in our environment. So we need to reduce our plastic use. Okay, next one. What about weather? Okay, so you know what it's like when we get flash floods around here. Our basins don't always handle all the water that's coming through, and we have cars wash out, and unfortunately people have lost their lives as well. So soot, I have noticed this last month, I'm sweeping up a lot more soot, on the patio and so forth. Storm frequency, how frequent are they? How much dust is blowing? And see, we have the dust issue. We have a lot of dust devils that I don't remember seeing. I did have a tornado when I lived out in Lake Los Angeles, and it flattened a block wall. And I watched it. I actually was driving home and I watched it come from Bakersfield all the way over. And I remember saying to my husband, I hope that doesn't hit our house. It didn't hit the house, but it hit the wall. And it just flattened it. So yeah, rare but occurring, and now with our tropical storm issues, we can have more. Next.
I actually saw a cyclone last storm. I saw not a tornado, but it was like the water.
Yeah, Yeah, I see the cyclones a lot when I'm out birding. You can see them, especially if you're looking down from the desert from above, you can see them. Yeah, right. They're moving around. What about the amount of trash? Okay, so can you reduce your amount of plastics or the bags you use, glass or other edible items? Can you recycle? Glass and things can be recycled. Styrofoam never breaks down. Okay, let's see the next one. I'm sure I said something. Is there enough water to survive? So the water cycle, we have the same amount of water on the earth that we have had since the beginning of time. But what does it do? It evaporates, goes up in the clouds, rains down on the earth, is collected underneath the earth, and the water cycle moves on. We drink it, but then, when we're gone, the water returns. And so it's a never-ending same amount. So what are we going to do to make sure that this water is clean and healthy? What about the land? Does the land support habitat, food, shelter, and water? Is there enough land for space for a family of animals? You know, larger animals need a larger hunting area. Smaller animals, not so much. And respite. And these are things you should think about when you're planting your own little garden. Do you have places in your garden where your birds can hide from predators, like bushes and trees, you know, where they can get off the ground, you know, and be seen? But hunting grounds, that's something I don't know. You know, when I first moved here, there were coyotes all over the valley. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing coyotes. Now I see them seldom, you know, so I'm sure that it is changing. Is the habitat clean from garbage and debris? We know that is a big no, even here in our preserve. Oh my gosh, I spent 6 hours on one little space, Anna and I only took out like 2 bags full of glass, and there was still, now we see more glass all over the preserve where people have dumped it from the past. You know, these things cut little animals' feet and harm them, and if they eat them, they'll cut the stomach lining and stuff like that. All right, so how humans affect the environment, what they can do to help. So, don't litter, pick up your trash, compost organic matter, do not use styrofoam under any circumstance, and recycle.
And if you do have any styrofoam you don't know what to do with, I'm building a trash city. It's a creative project, so
cool.
just so it can be something
So
to be displayed.
we
Or,
can bring it in here and you can drop it off.
or yeah, if you want to call ahead or something, and just mention me.
I have old egg cartons and flat things.
Yeah, I could give you my Audubon email too if you want to contact me, because I've made a bunch of little structures with styrofoam cups and styrofoam and whatnot.
Okay.
Just because, you know,
That's good to know.
What to do with
You
it.
know, we should probably put something like that on one of our
Yeah.
notices so that
Yeah, I'll
people
keep
would
that in
know,
mind.
because styrofoam is the big no-no. And you know, I just got a new computer printer, and what is it packed in? Styrofoam. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Why couldn't
Oh.
they pack it in cardboard?
Well, and if you get flat styrofoam ever as packaging material, I've been using it as a painting canvas. So if you
Oh, you
prime
have?
it with acrylic paint, it sort of like solidifies the surface instead of it being so porous, and then you can use it as a canvas, and it has a similar texture and pull, like, you know, when you're painting, you can feel it against the canvas. And the canvas weighs about 1 pound instead of like 20 pounds. So just an idea of how to reuse flat canvas
Yeah,
or
that's
styrofoam.
fantastic. I never thought of that, see?
Is your email Audubon?
Yeah, I'll give it to you before you take off, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't order much. I've only just started, but I have there's 1 or 2 boxes, and I think styrofoam was in. It's just I don't. It's still in the apartment. I just I haven't taken it out.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my email, and if anybody wants to give me styrofoam that they don't know what to do with, I'm here for
It
you.
wasn't big, but I think there was.
Cool,
I have to go look.
awesome.
Recycle, glass, paint, medicines, needles, can, furniture polish, paint thinners, motor oil. Don't dump any of the chemicals above into your soil. Reuse towels, rags, aluminum foil, food containers, and lunch boxes. And we use something like 3 billion cans in the United States per year of soda cans. 3 billion. I don't drink soda, so it's hard for me to understand that. But holy moly, you know, 3 billion. So recycle those, you know, and then they can be reused. That's what we need to do. Plant native plants, bushes, and trees. That is the log in www.audubon.org/native-plants is the login to get into the native plant in your Audubon from National, and you just put in your zip code and they will send you, it will bring up, it will upload these pictures. So I took a picture of the pictures.
That's great.
And showing what it tells you. It tells you the plant, and then it tells you what birds are attracted to it.
I just want Orioles in my yard, so I'm gonna.
Well,
I'm
good
gonna
luck,
plant
because
that
they're, yeah, but you know, they are a migrant. They're not year round, so you're only gonna get them sometime. All right, next.
It's illegal.
Plan your gardens to enhance diversity. So this is a picture I took at the Santa Barbara Botanical Garden, and you can see they have a tree like in the center, but then they have like a little rock next to the tree, and then they have bushes, lower bushes, and then when you look back, you know, it's the natural canopy behind. So it has multiple height plants, it has places that birds can hide, and it has a source of water in it. Next. Keep bird feeders and bird baths clean, so they don't spread disease among birds. Use 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. Brush and clean with soapy water. Then use your bleach. Make sure the ports are clean on the hummingbird feeders from any mold or algae. Dry and refill. I'm not so sure that you have to dry hummingbird feeders, because you're making a mix of water and sugar. And you know, as long as you don't have any black or, you know, spots, and your clean is, you know, your feeder is clean, that should not be a problem. But you do have to dry seed feeders, because wet seed will produce bacteria and disease.
Mold.
So you want to, yeah, and mold. So, right, so it's just showing you 3 different kinds of feeders. All the feeders break apart, come apart fairly easily, and then you can use little brushes to clean, like the right feeder looks like it's a Niger seed feeder, and that's just a little tiny screen, and then I just brush it out every so often. All right? Before feeding birds, inform yourself and follow tried and true scientific methods. There's a lot of good videos on YouTube about how to clean feeders and what to do, which we have in some of our programs. Next slide. Build a brush pile. Okay, don't rake your yard so often, and lights out during migration. So the brush pile, it all depends. If I had a brush pile like that in my yard, I would definitely have rats. I already have squirrels, so I had to change all my feeders over to squirrel buster feeders this year. But, you know, if you have a large property, like some of our members have multiple acres, you know, you've got a spot on your acreage where you can do something like that, and then that provides a nice place for birds and little insects. And insects will get in there to eat the dead brush and stuff, and then of course the birds will come to eat the insects. Migration, when you have bright, especially these LED lights, they will, birds navigate by the stars. And I was part of the research that proved that in the 1960s. And so when they see a bright light, they'll think they're looking at a star. And so we have a lot of, especially where there's bright lights in community buildings, will have bird counts of kills of many thousand during migration. There are more than 5 billion birds that fly within 8 days on the eastern migratory route. We don't have as many on the western route, but we do have, more than 1 million birds, and they tend to take off within 6 weeks on the western. They go up quick to breed, so they come inland when they're flying north, and when they go south, they kind of stop along the way, and in California, they really like to use the coast so that they can stop and feed along the coast and the parks on the coast. We do have them come south in the Antelope Valley. That's when we see our orioles training in fall. And then we have our resident orioles. We have bullocks and hooded orioles all year in our little mountain areas. So yeah, next slide. Keep cats indoors or on a leash when outdoors or in a cat patio. It's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. The cats took baby birds every single day for weeks in my backyard, and I don't even have a cat. So it's neighborhood cats.
Those cat patios are really great for cat enrichment also. They love it. They love sitting out there and watching the birds without being able to attack them. They're really great for cats.
They call them catios.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Tracy built her own at their house.
Oh, that's okay.
And her cat goes out there and enjoys it very much. There are commercial ones, you can build your own. I had a cat for quite a while. He was actually a bobcat, feral cat mix, and really smart cat. And I never let it outdoors because I figured, that bobcat's going to take care of all the other cats in the neighborhood and birds. So I kept him inside, and he would sit right at the patio door, and then he would make these little birdie sounds when he would see a bird. He'd clicking and and you're like, oh, there must be a bird out there. Sure enough, there was. Yeah, very smart cat.
Yeah, there's a San Diego-based guy called the Catio Guy that will build custom catios for your house if you're interested. But he makes some really amazing structures that also look natural and not just like a cat haven. So look him up, Catio Guy.
And really, we have to leash our dogs, even though everybody doesn't, but I really think we should be responsible pet owners. And part of that is not killing out the rest of stuff in your habitat, as far as a responsible pet owner. That's something I'd like to see us get active with the city to try to promote. So use bird-friendly decals on reflective windows. So a reflective window is one where the bird looks in and sees the reflection of the plants and the trees in your window. And so it's going to think that it can fly in for food. So if you use these UV, ultraviolet stickers, the top one is what it looks like to you on your window. And the bottom one is what the bird sees. And so then they have dotted paper, which has dots every 3 or 4 inches, little small dots. And it'll look the same way. It'll look dotted on the top. And then the bird sees the ultraviolet, so it'll see the blue and won't bump in. Spend wisely. So when you're spending, don't spend on stuff that you can't recycle or use. So we have in South America, not only Audubon, but also American Bird Conservancy is working with farmers to plant their coffee beans underneath the natural rainforest, rather than removing the rainforest, and that has been done in the past, and then doing your coffee. They found out that the coffee in the natural settings is much better coffee. It's more enriched coffee, and the number of species of birds living in that area is very large, where it's very, very small, and where they have denuded the rainforest. So purchase certified bird-friendly coffee if you're a coffee drinker. Purchase certified bird-friendly beef and produce from bird-friendly farms and ranches. So Audubon, if they're an Audubon certified, the meat has that certified on it. Northern California has a lot of that. And, you know, so just check. I know that Wild Birds Unlimited sells the birds and beans coffee. All right, give your home an energy audit. Improve your insulation. Increase the efficiency of your appliances. That's your Energy Star ratings. Cut down on your water heating. 120 degrees Fahrenheit is what's recommended. Install drip systems. Reuse gray water. Seal off air gaps and use solar energy. These are all things that we can do to decrease our carbon footprint on this earth. Respect nature. Keep your distance during nesting and breeding seasons. Don't overstress the birds. So like that little plover, okay, you can see that they lay their eggs just right on the dirt. And do you all see the baby plover in there with the eggs? So people will come and lay their beach towels down and not realize that they are covering up a baby bird. And so in the east, they have probably done more than we've done in the west. In the west, where we have our semi-palmated plover, which is between LA and San Diego, those Audubons are fencing off the area of the beach when it's breeding season, so that people won't be walking on the eggs, etc. And then they take down the fences when breeding season is over. But on the East Coast, they actually have monitors out from Audubon and the rangers to try to keep people from endangering the birds when they're breeding. Get involved. Volunteer in local community organizations, which have NS, like Antelope Valley Audubon Society. I guess I just only listed one. Participate in community cleanup days. Participate in community science projects. Climate watch. Every time you go birding, you should put in an eBird list. That helps the scientists all over, the researchers, because they pull a lot of their data from eBird. So if they're looking for a particular species and we have no idea, what they're looking for, if we have gone out and entered that we saw that species at a certain place in time, they can pull it off the records and use it in their research. So this really helps researchers from all over the world. They're using the eBird checklist. Use your art skills to celebrate wildlife. So get outdoors, enjoy nature, and go birding. So I took my first art course I took was during COVID, and I took from Cornell nature journaling and drawing birds. And so that was like one of my first paintings on the right, which is cedar waxwing. Next, I think we're almost done. What did we learn? Okay, roll them off. Ecology and connections of the Desert Woodland Preserve. What makes a desert biome? What makes the Prime Desert Woodland special? The uniqueness of the desert woodland features. Plants, animals, and birds. How to conserve the habitat. Food web connections. Weather and climate connections, what effect people have on the environment, and steps we can take to conserve the environment. So I produced this program and I'm the community program director, and Jenni Williams helped me as the vice president for Antelope Valley Audubon. And the contributor for our pictures are all entered there. Text sources came from Wikipedia, National Audubon, and Cornell, and other internet sites. And then our collaboration with MOA. And we updated it this July.
Yeah.
Any questions for either of us? Okay, so we had, in our plan with this, was to have you go out and see the connections in the Prime Desert Woodland. But we don't know how hot it is out there. So we do have like a little observation sheet that we can give you if you want, like we thought about if you wanted to do a loop. This is the shortest loop, you know, on this side. I don't know what.
Yeah,
what you
so we have some trail maps, but this loop, I think right here on the northeast side is probably the shortest. And you can kind of just go like this.
think. And it goes kind of out around the cottonwood tree and back,
But
right?
then the west loop will go around the cottonwood tree.
So
On
don't
the
we
map-
pick that up behind here?
Yeah, there's a map up here on the wall, or
Oh.
we have trail maps that you can pick up and take with you that have the updated trail, because there is a new trail up on the north side that's not on that image.
So if you want to do that, you can. And then the other thing we have are bird pictures to color. We have colored pencils and we have crayons. We have reference pictures if you want to make them look more like the bird, or you can have magical birds. If you don't.
And you
So,
we could do
so
it here. If
yeah.
anyone wants to color and do that here, we can set up a table and
Yeah, I
some
think
chairs.
I think we should do that.
And then, and I can